everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Tara Arnold, and tonight I'm going to be channeling the Ascended Master Saint Germain, the Ascended Masters, and Saint Germain showing me he's going to be bringing in information about turning our 3D traumas into 5D power. So that's the title of this video, so we'll see what they have to say. I might be coming in and out of trance, like conscious channeling as well as trance channeling for this one, just because they're showing me different topics. And pictures of my third eye, and I might just have to come out of trance to explain it. I'm not sure yet, but we will see what happens. Thanks for watching and have a great night. Oh yes, welcome. I'm Saint Germain. We welcome you all. We are showing our channel that many of you have created extensive trauma in childhood and throughout many walks of your life. You have created these traumas and shatters in order to be motivated to go in and stop seeking outside of yourself. If you had not experienced these traumas and the abuse that you went through, what would have motivated you to find another way or to seek within or to go on your spiritual path? Every one of you has created a journey on their path on planet Earth that will take them to the deepest depths of the darkness so that they can know the greatest light. You are all well aware of this. Today we are showing our channel that the result of these abuses, the result of these traumas during childhood have created some stuck patterns in the egoic mind system, in the brain, in the way that you perceive your reality. And many of you keep recreating the loop of the shatters of the trauma over and over. This would be seen as a PTSD symptom in your reality. Today we wish to explain how to come out of this. We're showing our channel the many ways that the abuse has shaped you and how you react to it. One moment, please. So Saint Germain's showing me that there are personalities that we develop from going through this abuse. So many of us that are here today have created a lot of trauma and abusive parents or abusive teachers or authority figures in our life as children in order to bring the deepest depths of the darkness to the surface. So all of these people that shattered us on our journey are only a reflection of how we were never loving ourselves. So there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of gaslighting. I don't like to use labels, but like narcissistic parents or sociopaths that came into your life during childhood and abused you. And now from that, what he's showing me is that we develop these personalities, and how we react to certain situations is based on a lot of that. And so to have the awareness of how you react in your day-to-day life now, because of all the PTSD, like it's this loop and we keep creating these patterns, this same repetitive pattern. And he's saying start to see the glimmers of light instead of these loops of shatters. Like change your perception to how things are going to start showing up in your day, that I'm going to find more things to be excited about and find happiness in rather than expecting a shatter. Because when you're so abused as a child, it just becomes such a pattern that that's what your subconscious is telling you, okay, we're going to expect that now, and we're just going to keep revamping, rerunning, re-looping these programs. And so our brain starts to search for that in our reality, because that's what the ego is telling us is safe if we're being abused or being traumatized. So just change it to, can I see some glimmers of light? Like start naming good things that happened in your day, that and telling your subconscious, let's seek the light instead of the darkness. We don't have to keep recreating these loops. And the reason I came out of trance is because he was showing me like the different types of personalities that we develop. So without putting too many labels on this, it's just figuring out what attachment style that your personality got developed into from all the abuse from childhood, from narcissistic parents or teachers, being gaslit all the time. So we go into this survival technique. And when we're experiencing emotions, if you have a personality that feels very anxious and that you need somebody to help regulate your emotions, you're really clingy, then that's an anxious attachment style. Now, don't judge it. Like, you can Google this and see the different attachment styles, but don't start to beat yourself up for it. The only reason Saint Germain's bringing this up is so that we can learn to go in and regulate our own emotions and stop needing people outside ourselves. So if you find that you're clingy, that you need your partner to help regulate your emotions, that you get really, really anxious and you need them to calm you down, or you need a friend to calm you down, then most likely you've developed an anxious attachment style. So there's nothing wrong with that. But going in and changing the story for your inner child. So you go in and talk to your inner child when you feel emotions, instead of running to that person that usually helps you figure them out. You go in and you work with your inner child and give your inner child a new story. It's safe for us to work on this on our own. It's safe for us to be alone, because a lot of people that have this anxious attachment are afraid to be alone too. So when you're afraid to be alone, you tend to push people away because you're always too clingy, and it comes off as desperation. So changing that story, going in and self-soothing your own emotions and regulating those emotions, he's saying, will help you get out of that cycle, that loop of always like pushing people away because you're too clingy or too desperate. Again, don't judge yourself for it. It's just your inner child has learned, and your ego has developed this pattern of reaction. Okay, so you're just changing the pattern of how you react. So there's a few different other types. There's an avoidant, like a fearful avoidant or dismissive avoidant. So they tend to push people away. They want a relationship, but then they're like, that doesn't feel comfortable, because when they were children, their needs didn't get met from their parents when they had an emotional reaction or needed their parents' help. And so the parents pushed them away and said, oh, you go to your room, nothing's happening, you're fine. And they ignored their needs. And so they had to learn to self-regulate, like by going in and working on their emotions themselves, and therefore they tend to push people away. So if that resonates with you, then it's fine, like making your inner child feel safe to express your emotions, to talk to your partner or your friend, and to stop avoiding all the emotions, because it's like they go in and they go in and work on their emotions, but a lot of times they just bury them. So it's not being afraid to feel those emotions and work with those emotions, and working with your inner child. It's all visualization, or you can write it down if you don't visualize. But recognizing what the patterns created from all your trauma, the patterns in the personality, you can see how you react. And now there's people who have secure attachments, and so he's showing me those people have had parents that were very supportive, and they weren't traumatized, so they just feel very secure in their relationships. But the anxious person and the avoidant person are very attracted to each other, because it's almost like you're opposites. And if you're here watching this channel, it's most likely you went through a lot of trauma as a child, because that was what would motivate you to go on your awakening journey. And so we put in our blueprint all this trauma and all this narcissistic abuse so that we can start to find a new way. Like, this can't be it, like what is going on? And so then we'll go in and find another way, and that's when the ego starts to get shattered. So the spiritual awakening is when your spirit starts to get louder than your ego. So everything starts to shatter, and you start to see that all the love from childhood that you thought you had was all conditional. And then you start to recognize the deeper layers of your caretakers' egos, and how the abuse was there, even if you didn't see it at that time. As you're awakening, you're seeing it. And it's the third dimension game. It's like a game of conditions. So that you letting go of the person that you thought that they were. So if you have had parents that were maybe covert narcissists, that kind of like everybody in the community saw that they were amazing and talked so highly of them, but then in the household they would gaslight you and belittle you, and it causes a lot of confusion. So letting that person go that you thought they were, because our egos created this scenario where that parent loved us, and just like they loved everybody in the community. And so the ego creates all this stuff, and then as you're awakening, it starts to get shattered and unravel, and you start to see the truth and the deeper layers of the ego in everyone around you. So as you're seeing it, it's not about judging it, it's about saying goodbye to the people you thought they were. So it was like, well, this parent was supposed to love me and support me, and now Saint Germain's saying, it's like, can I say goodbye to the person I thought they were going to be, or that they were supposed to be, and just let that person go as if they're going through a physical death. So you go through each person that, you know, betrayed you or abandoned you or neglected you or abused you, or somebody that was supposed to love you that didn't follow through. Like, all of those people in your reality, just go by one and say goodbye to them as if you're going or as if they're going through a physical death. And then the new version of them, because they're not changing, they're the same, but it's you that's changing. So it's not that their egos are getting louder, it's because you're becoming more consciously aware of their deep layers of their ego. So as you say goodbye to the illusion of what you thought that person was, let them go as if you're letting go of somebody who actually is going through a physical death. And then it's easy to not judge that person when you see them. So say that it's a parent and you've got to go home for Christmas, and they were quite abusive. Say goodbye to that parent, like completely, as if they have had left the planet. And then when you go and meet the new parent in your story, because so you're changing your story, you're going to meet the new parent, you can go in with no judgment, because that inner child's not attached to what you told them that person was supposed to be. You've let go of that attachment. They're gone. So this new person isn't in your life because you're giving that love to your inner child that you didn't get from them when you were a child. So they're no longer needed. So all the desperation that you have for your parents to love you is now gone, because you've said goodbye to them like as if they physically left the world. So then when you go home to visit, there's just observing this new person, because you're looking at them and you're saying, okay, I don't need anything from them because I'm giving that love to myself. And then Saint Germain saying, when you don't need them and then you observe them without judgment, then, and accept them fully, then you'll be set free, because it was still the thing of wanting them to change or needing them to change or needing them to be a certain way or being attached to how they were supposed to be. And I've got to find that love from them. Say goodbye to them, let them go, and then go meet that new version that you've created in your story. So this new version of my parents is that they're in their own little world over here, and I'm over here loving my inner child, loving myself, and I don't need all the things that I needed from them. So now I'm set free. I'll just sit back, I'll just observe them without judgment. Whatever their actions are, if they belittle me at the dinner table, then I'll just say in my head, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong that they just said that. I'm just observing without judgment, because I don't need them to love me, because I'm loving me. And I've said goodbye to the version that I always needed to love me. So just set yourself free from needing what we needed from our parents as children, or from, like, if you don't have parents, like, you know, was it a teacher or an authority figure or a boss? Like, who have you attached to and needed things from? So this is bringing us into the way that our love language is developed. And at first, when Saint Germain brought that word in, I didn't know what he was talking about. So I had to Google it. And apparently there's like 5 different ways. Some of you might already know this, so you can just put that in the comment below if you know what I'm talking about. But there's different types of love language, and it's how we perceive to be loved, how we give love. And I just want to talk about that a little bit, because he's showing me there might be some people that aren't aware, like I wasn't aware of what our love language is and what we need from people because of it. And if we have an awareness of what it is, then we can give that love to ourselves and we don't have to seek it outside of ourselves. So I'm just going to list the different types of love language. So the first one, I wrote them down. So the first one is words of affirmation. So that's when you feel loved by people who compliment you. So, or give you like kind words. And then you're like, okay, now I know I'm loved because I have had these words of affirmation. I hear them from people, and this is my love language. So if my partner gives me that, then I'll know that I'm loved, if they always are complimenting me. But if they stop complimenting me, I don't feel loved. And then you go into this rejection. I'm rejected because they didn't give me that. So what you do is you go in and give that to yourself. Like, I love me, and compliment yourself. Stop needing somebody else to compliment you if that's your love language. The second thing is, second type of love language is acts of service. So this is when your partner will go out of their way to make your life easier. So they, you wake up in the morning and they've made the coffee and they're serving it to you in bed, and you're saying, okay, I know that person loves me because of their acts of service. They're making sure my day's good, and maybe they've cleaned the snow off the car or started your car, like they're taking care of you. So the acts of service. So if your partner stops doing those acts of service, or if you don't have a partner, if it's a friend or a family member, if they stop doing these acts of service and that's your love language, then you don't feel loved. And you're like, oh, okay. So if that's not happening, or maybe you have a breakup, and so now nobody's giving you that act of service, and how are you going to know you're loved? So if that's your love language, going in and telling your inner child, oh, okay, we can do that for ourselves. We can buy ourselves flowers. We can, oh, I'm just hearing that Miley Cyrus song. So you can, yeah, the Miley Cyrus song, he's saying. That's exactly it. I can buy myself flowers. So if your love language is acts of service, you can give yourself acts of service. You can cook yourself a nice dinner and light some candles and have a nice quiet candlelight dinner and show your inner child, see, we don't need somebody outside ourselves to give us that. I can give you that. And then it takes the pressure off all these people outside of us that we're expecting to react to us so that we know that we're loved. Okay, and the third way is receiving gifts. So the thoughtfulness of gifts. So if you're a person that, your spouse or your family members, they're always giving you gifts and you feel really loved, and then those gifts stop, you're not going to feel loved. So again, it's like, oh, okay, if that happens, instead of feeling rejected and abandoned and betrayed and getting upset and crying, I can go buy myself gifts. Like, what gifts do I want to go get myself? I can even wrap them up and open them, have a birthday party for myself, buy myself a cake to go with it. So yeah, receiving gifts. The fourth love language was quality time. So if you receive the feeling of being loved by how much your partner spends time with you, or your friends or family, and then all of a sudden nobody has time for you. They get busy at work, or they're busy with other people, or a family member sick and they have to go help them. Then all of a sudden the only way that you're receiving love is now gone. And you're like, oh, I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, I'm gonna go cry. So instead of needing that quality time, could I spend that with my inner child? Could I make a play date with my inner child? Maybe we'll go walk on the beach and skip rocks. Like, what did you like to do as a child? Did you love going out for an ice cream? Just like go out and have an ice cream. Go to a movie by yourself. Like, go and do this, spend quality time with yourself and give that to yourself. And the last one is physical touch. So if you're a person that always needs to be like hugged or touched to be shown love and affection, and then you end up getting a divorce or moving away for a job and you have no family or friends around, and all of a sudden you're no longer receiving touch, you're going to feel very abandoned and alone. And it's, so you could give that to yourself. You could start to hug yourself. You could go in and talk to your inner child and give her a hug in your visualization. You could start going for massages, go for anything, any kind of, he's showing me it's like hands-on healing or any kind of body work with the healing, like massages or chiropractor or acupuncture, stuff where your body's receiving touch, and then you're not feeling neglected by that. Like you could buy yourself one of those massagers that like the massage your shoulders, or the foot massagers he's showing me. It's like reflexology, so you get like a foot massager. There's acupressure mats, so you could lay on an acupressure mat. So anything for physical touch, you could give that to yourself, and then you wouldn't be as needing it outside yourself. So this is, he's showing me people that are, he's showing me the dating sites, and sometimes it's just, I need physical touch, and so I've got to go on a dating site and get that. So that might really eliminate a lot of times where you felt like you needed something, but if you're giving it to yourself, now you don't need to look outside yourself. So when he showed me these 5 love languages, and I didn't know what he was talking about, and I looked it up on the internet, it just started making sense. So it's, if one of these things are missing and that's your love language, then yeah, you're going to feel rejected all the time. So this is an easy fix to go in and give that love to yourself so that you no longer need it outside of yourself. And if you want more information on the different personality types that we develop, you can just Google that as well. There's lots of information, a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists on TikTok and YouTube that talk about different attachment styles and how our personality develops from childhood abuse. So there's lots of information on the internet. So another thing that Saint Germain is showing me about turning your 3D trauma into 5D power is setting boundaries. So he says this is really important because when we were being abused, we never set boundaries. So the pattern in our mind is to never set boundaries. That was what was most comfortable. But setting boundaries is what it's going to get your power back. You're going to become that empowered, empathic warrior, and you're not going to allow people to ever take your power again. So I know a lot of you have already been working on this or doing it, but he's saying this as a reminder. It's like, oh, it's okay to say no, and it's okay to not respond to people. So some people, it's like, oh, if I respond to them, is that giving my power away? Because there's some people that you don't even need to respond to. So just knowing that, because a lot of times we think we have to answer, or we think we have to say yes. So it's learning to say no and not needing an excuse of why you're saying no. And the first few times, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to, even if you have to say no in person, you might blurt something out of your mouth that sounds really harsh. That's just because your ego's trying to fight the way that you're setting the boundary. It's saying, no, I don't want you to set the boundary. And your spirit's like, I want to set a boundary. And so the first few times you do it, you end up like yelling at someone. You're like, oh my God, that's not me. I don't yell. I can't believe I yelled. Don't beat yourself up. You're learning how to get your power. You're learning how to speak from your heart instead of your head. And your head always ran the show, and it's going to fight as much as it can. Saint Germain's showing me it's like a battle between the ego and the spirit. It's just like the energies. They're different energy frequencies, and they're like repelling each other. So at the beginning, as you're learning how to say no and setting boundaries, it's going to feel uncomfortable and people are going to get upset, but it's not your responsibility how they react to you loving yourself. So he's saying, even though it's a scary thing to, speak up to a parent or speak up to a loved one, you have to love yourself more than you need them to like you. So every time I say something to somebody, I say, did I just say that to love me or feed their ego? If you're doing something to feed someone's ego instead of loving your inner child, you just shrink. Your spirit shrinks. Your inner child feels sad. Your inner child's like, why are you feeding their ego instead of loving me? So check in, like when you send an email, before you send it, read each sentence. Is there anything in that sentence that I just gave my power away, or that I didn't set a boundary, or I'm allowing someone to walk all over me? So it's figuring out how to set boundaries comfortably. At the beginning, it's going to be uncomfortable because you're so used to allowing people to take your power that when you start to get your power, they're going to get angry and it's not going to feel comfortable. But tell your inner child, I love you more than I need them to love me. So if they react with anger or hate or rage, that's okay because I love you. I don't need them. And then your inner child's like, oh, okay, I'm enough? And you're like, yeah, you're enough. I just didn't know you were enough. So I always was seeking love from them and never setting boundaries. But now that I know you're enough, I can set boundaries, because if they hate me, if they don't ever want to talk to me again, I'm enough without them. So setting boundaries and loving ourselves, Saint Germain saying it's the most important on our spiritual path. So have fun with it. You're all empowered empaths. Walk in knowing your greatness. No longer shrink yourself to match everybody's frequency in the room to keep the energy calm. Instead, walk in expanded. Walk in knowing your greatness. Walk in as if you're an ascended master to any room and not worry about how anybody reacts to that. There's some people that are going to get angry about it. There's some people that are going to be drawn to you because they love your light and they want to download it from you and they want to receive that light. But there's going to be their egos in the room that do not like it. It's not comfortable, but they're going to have to go get their ego fed somewhere else. So even if they're rude or make a rude comment, they're going to be gone in a minute, because if you stay expanded and you're in your power, their ego can't get fed. And if they have a superior fed ego, it needs to go get fed somewhere. So they'll leave the room. And those who would love to download from your light will stay, and you'll create friends that are loving and kind, instead of us walking into a room, shrinking our energy to match everybody's in the room, to keep the peace so that nobody fights and nobody attacks me. Don't be afraid of being attacked anymore. Just walk in expanded, and it's not your responsibility about how anybody reacts to that. So that's the message from Saint Germain today and the Ascended Masters. Thank you so much for coming. I'm short of breath because they're transmuting a lot in the heart chakra right now. So if you're open to receiving frequencies of light codes from the Ascended Masters before you watch any of these videos when I channel, then just say you're open to receiving, and your spirit will bring to the surface what it wants to have transmuted, and you will begin to download right through the video. Time and distance don't matter. And that's all you have to do, is say that you're open to receiving. So thanks for watching. We will see you next time. Have a great night.